This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Hey, it is Long Shot Special Edition. How about a little sneak peek action here of the U.S. Open? Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelley Bydlon. And guys, listen, usually we have in the past, sometimes these majors come in over the weekend and done some little update stuff. But, you know, we put our heads together, and that's probably not how about 90% of you bet. I imagine most of you are putting in your bets pre-tournament, walking away and praying that on Sunday you have a sweat. So I want to give you more pre-tournament content here this week. And so first look, as we head to Shinnecock Hills over there in New York. And of course, as always, we will have the full podcast on Tuesday. We will have the full show with all of our picks. Wes's article will be up on VSiN.com as usual. This is just kind of our first thoughts here as we get going here with the U.S. Open. And first and foremost is the odds board, in which you will find Scottie Scheffler at the top. And Wes, as we look at this is a storyline heading into this week, as Scottie Scheffler will be trying to capture the career Grand Slam.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're now seeing, I know it's not indicated on the screen that we have for DraftKings, but I've even seen, looking around, there are some books that have gone to 6-1 on Scottie Scheffler. And keep in mind, last year he was like 275 here. So he's nearly double the price. And he's not, the Scottie Scheffler, and certainly hadn't been playing like it, that won 2 majors last year, that won the PGA and also won the Claret Jug at the Open. But you're getting him about double the price. He kind of fits into a little bit of that narrative, even with the added pressure of trying to close out the final jewel of the career Grand Slam. He turns the big 3-0, by the way, on Sunday for the final round on June 21st. So he turns 30. It's on Father's Day. He just had his second child, Remy, a couple months ago, and trying to complete that. So he kind of fits like all the narratives, he's the big storyline because he's the number one player in the world and trying to close out the career Grand Slam. So, you look and does he fit this course? Certainly he fits this course. I think he fits any course, and I think that's been indicated with how successful he has been in major championships, even when he hasn't won. So, are people, is this the time to maybe buy? It sounds ridiculous to say buy on the dip with the clear-cut favorite of the tournament, but this is as high as we've seen in a couple years for him with the major championship, and obviously arguably the best field that they'll have all year, certainly one of the better ones. So you have to account for the fact that this isn't your boilerplate PGA Tour event where you're going to see him at like 3-1. You're getting really all the big name players are here, whether they're from LIV or the DP World Tour, what have you, are playing this event. So, he's been playing very solid golf. Hadn't quite been to the usual standard that he's been over the last 3 years. But
that's the funny thing about this, Wes. It's like we talk about a air quote if you're watching us on video, like the slump, coming in here. Kelley, you've got it pulled up. This is his year. He started off with a win. T3, T4, T12, T24, T22, outright second, T14, outright third, and then a T12. Kelley, if that is a slump, sign me up, buddy. I mean, yeah, I sign me up for that.
Yep, he's terrible at golf. We'll see how Scottie handles the adversity. Yeah, he's peaked. Yeah, see how he handles it going forward. I do think it's an interesting discussion, though, of how much is that affecting his price, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm openly asking that question. It's do you have to win? Do people have to cash outright tickets for this price to get pushed back down? For or for this to drift back out. And, I think we are seeing that a little bit of that because he hasn't won, that we are getting those drifts to 6-1. I did think the DraftKings odds were interesting because I wasn't monitoring this a fair amount yesterday, and they had swung out to over 5-1, I believe. So they came back to under that number here today as we're seeing all these futures markets reset for the U.S. Open, heading out of the RBC Canadian Open. So, yeah, I think it's very fascinating. I think the conversation with U.S. Open does start with him. And I think if you're creating a betting card, I was just looking through my PGA Championship. It was my worst event of the year. And, man, is it feeling like I could be constructing a similar card, unfortunately. Because I think at 6-1, you could very much say I'm betting Scottie Scheffler, feel very damn comfortable with that and move on.
Yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, and this will be out late Monday evening, if you're in a Bet365 market, there is still a 6 available there. If you're in a FanDuel market, if you're in a MGM market, it's still $550 at those. And so, again, biggest number, as Wes mentioned, that we've seen on Scheffler in a tournament like this in a very long time. And he is going for the career Grand Slam, and it'll be up against, as you can see on the odds board there, if you're over on the video side, all of the best players in the world. If we just kind of go down, I'll since Kelley's got DraftKings pulled up, I'll go down MGM here. Scottie 550, then Rory at 12-1, Rahm at 14, Xander at 18, Matt Fitzpatrick and Cam Young are sitting there at 20, Tommy Fleetwood at 22, with Ludwig at 22, 25 on Bryson DeChambeau. Everybody else is going to be 30 or longer over at MGM anyway. Of course, as always, shop around. There are some very interesting and different odds out there on all these different players. And certainly with these tournaments being open all year long, all the majors are the only ones that are open all year long. There will be varying futures liability in these books. I can just look off the top right quick and see that must have been a lot of liability on Brooks Koepka at Caesars, whereas not so much over at FanDuel, as we have a whole 10-point difference there between 25-1 and 35-1 there on Brooks Koepka. And so just things to monitor, whereas, it's 33-1 on Tyrrell Hatton, weirdly enough, at MGM, but 45-1 over at Caesar. So, I mean, there's a lot of these, futures liabilities as these markets have been open for a very long time. It is 156 players in this thing, but there will be a ton of qualifiers in this as well. And so I'm not going to say zero chance to win. Some of these guys, I mean, we are seeing better players at a younger age, over and over and over again here on the PGA Tour. That being said, I mean, we've got a couple of 17-year-olds in the field, one of which qualified with Charlie Woods on the bag, both of them going to Florida State. We've got an 18-year-old who is the reigning U.S. amateur champion, and Mason Howell. He actually played the Masters, if you remember. He's in the field as well. Another couple of 18-year-olds, plenty of very high-level collegiate golfers that are in this as well.
Jackson Koivin, by the way, is under 100-1 in a couple of these books. And by the way, get familiar with that name. He's about to join the PGA Tour, and officially turn professional, the College Player of the Year, and they won the national championship at Auburn. It's going to be funny when we're looking at him at the John Deere Classic in a few weeks, and he's like 16-1. It's like, he just turned pro. Like, I thought we were getting a bargain on this guy. But Jackson Koivin in this field, not his first major championship, but his first pretty much as a professional, even though he hasn't officially turned professional to keep his exemption here.
His teammate, 19-year-old Logan Riley, also in the field. He's one of the elite collegiate golfers in the country. Also his teammate there at Auburn. You've got a bunch of other collegiate golfers that are going to be in the field as well. Some of the other qualifiers that are just pros and names that Cole Hammer, Billy Horschel, Emiliano Grillo, JB Holmes, Chris Kirk, Keith Mitchell, Andrew Putnam, Alejandro Tosti. All of those guys had to go through golf's longest day to get into this tournament, and they did. Guys, let's go. One of the things that we're able to talk about here, kind of on the loose form podcast, as opposed to where we need to hit time limits and stuff, is there's going to be question marks around 3 very big name guys and 3 guys that we have bet a ton over the course of the years. And Brooks Koepka, Collin Morikawa, and Jake Knapp. We have seen Brooks Koepka have to withdraw last week due to a wrist injury. Jake Knapp has 50-50 probably coin toss whether he is going to tee it up at this. Collin Morikawa has not looked the same since he, got this injury as well. And I think it's affected the numbers on a lot of these guys as well as we go this. I mean, look, I know Brooks Koepka has never really played the smaller events very well. He's always been the big game hunter and things like that. And I think he would at least been in some contention in our minds, in all of this, but huge injury concerns there. I mean, Kelley, I don't know. Like we say, always, if you play DFS, you can take a bunch of risks on these dudes, because if you burn one lineup, it doesn't matter if you have 10, 15, 20 other ones. But, when you're talking about an outright bet, it really is a big decision whether you're willing to take on the risk of a guy teeing it up and playing 3 holes and going, you know what, this actually isn't going to work out for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think all 3 of these guys are probably easy scratch-offs for me this week. Wes and I ended up on Brooks last week, so we got that full experience, saw him playing well early. And And look, I think we could argue it of who's coming in better form, but I would say it's Brooks over Collin Morikawa right now with the quality of golf that he's playing. So, look, it's golf and injury reporting in golf. It's very tough. We see him blow up on Saturday and withdraw from the tournament. You don't know how much of an injury that is versus trying to get to the U.S. Open early and prepare, facing all that weather that he knew he was going to face on Sunday. I know there were those rumors and reports floating around, and especially with it being Brooks, like you said, Matt, we know he's always cared more about these majors. So I don't know. I think in golf it's kind of impossible unless you've heard it from their mouth directly to be certain about any of these things. So I have a feeling that will be enough for me to stay away from Koepka. I think if I wanted to take a shot on any of the three, it would be Morikawa, just from that, God, I can't get over the approach play that we saw early in the season, and the numbers that you could get him at mid-30s here. I do think your point, though, DFS, those kind of routes are probably a better way to look with him. And then Knapp, man, he's been awesome. I don't think I could trust where Jake Knapp's game's at all right now with what he's been through with this injury.
And Morikawa also has the nappy factor, by the way, just had a baby. So if you like to play that angle, which has worked and sometimes not worked for me, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and Wes, I think the other thing just about these dudes with injury concerns and stuff is like, I guess my thing would be is if you're going to play them, I'd play them in an outright market and move on. Like what you don't want to get a lot of exposure to these guys in head-to-heads and things like that and placement market stuff where you're really trying to keep your bankroll healthy. That's where we're trying to de-risk, right? Like we're trying to de-risk in those markets as opposed to bringing on a ton of risk. Whereas like, hey, the guy could, again, Kelley, like you said, Brooks was playing great. And then I actually watched, I saw him hurt himself. Like, and it was, you could see the iron play just fell off a cliff. Like as soon as he started messing with his wrist and stuff and everything like that.
The round was so awful. Yeah, I'd have to believe there was something real there, but it was, I didn't see that. So that's good to know, actually.
Yeah. So, I guess the thing I would say, and Wes, feel free to disagree, would just be, if you do want to play those guys, I'd play them you're playing the upside that they're healthy and they're going to play like themselves, but assuming risk in the markets in which we are trying to kind of de-risk in these tournaments, that's how we keep our bankrolls healthy, in the head-to-heads, in the placement markets, in the three balls, et cetera, probably isn't where you want to bring those guys on. Yeah,
not at all for me. So, and I don't want to say easy scratches because Morikawa would be of those three that we mentioned, but there's, even though we know we have the qualifiers and the amateurs and all those guys kind of at the bottom, elite field here. Like nobody that's like really elite in the game right now is not here at Shinnecock this week. So you've got a lot to choose from, and that's a little bit of a leap of faith. I think if you're putting a card together that somebody injured at the U.S. Open, which already is the hardest major of the year, and I know we'll get to that when we talk about the course, but this course is going to be really hard. And when you're hurt, this is not the one you want to play necessarily.
No, I 100% agree, and I will probably be. I would imagine I'm staying away from all three of these, like I said. But Wes, I'll be honest, man. But especially Brooks and Morikawa, I think for people that listened to the podcast last week, they probably picked up on this. Like those were two golfers that I was very interested in seeing how they looked at the Canadian Open to carry over this week because of the injury that Morikawa was coming off of, and then Koepka was really grounded into some nice form here. So. Yeah, I think kind of a shame, but I think if specifically like me, you were kind of looking out for that type of stuff last week. I don't think you saw much. Like Morikawa played okay. He didn't play well enough for me really running, though, to make a bet on him this week. So, yeah, like you said, carry this all over, all of these question marks to the U.S. Open where you're going to play the toughest golf course you're going to play all year. Yeah, I'm probably good. I'm passing.
I would, and we'll get into, obviously the nuance of everything here, but we move over to Shinnecock. And guys, I guess my initial reaction here to my research has just been, I don't know how much I'm going to lean on the past two here, mainly because from what we're hearing is they do want guys to be rewarded for playing good golf as opposed to just being out there and getting pissed off because you're hitting great shots and the damn ball, there's nothing you can do to hold a green. There's absolutely nothing you can do to reward, what sometimes in 2018 was excellence that was not getting rewarded at all. So, Wes, I think that's my first takeaway here from Shinnecock is just that I don't know how much I'm going to lean on the 2018 stuff, the 2004. Like, I don't think I'm going to do too much of that because I kind of believe they're going to make it play differently. Hard. It's a U.S. Open. It's going to be hard, but not impossible like it was the last time we saw this.
Well, one of the things, Matt, that they did change is the green speeds are going to be a little bit slower than they were in 2018, because usually you get to like a U.S. Open, you're like 13 or 14 on the stem meter. This year, it's going to be like 11 and a half to 12 based on all the research I've done thus far. And that's kind of like average speed. Now, these greens are complex and there's a lot of contours in them. So it's still going to be hard. And, you know, when we finalize our models, you know, we're going to be looking at 3-putt avoidance because your lag putting, your approach putting has to be really good. But you look at like the metrics of the course, like when you first see this, the fairways are some of the widest that you will get out there. I think they're 48 yards wide, third widest, I believe, that they'll see pretty much all year. And the greens are really big, 7,500 square feet. Those are massive greens, but they're going to play smaller because of the contours and whatnot. But we know what the challenges are at the U.S. Open, the rough. Like you're going to get fescue rough. I saw 5 to 8 inches, you know, 5 might be like the intermediate cut. So if you're wayward off the tee here, they are going to punish you, and that's what they should do, and that's what they always do at the U.S. Open. Bunker play going to be, I think, you know, matter because you got 160 most of any course that they're going to see all year. And when I was looking at the 2018, because I was kind of looking at that, I was like, do we really have a profile of a player that's going to play well here? Like, was it bombers? Was it approach guys? Was it accuracy guys? And when I looked at the top 10, I think you had a pretty diverse group. No one really gave you that indicator because in 2010, and I'll just run down the names very, very quickly, Koepka, your winner, 1 over par, by the way. And one thing I do want to point out, kind of an interesting nugget, they played the U.S. Open here now 4 times. This will be the 5th time. 1986 was the first time they had played it since like the early 1900s or something. The 4 last U.S. Opens, all the way from 86 to now, you've had 3 total players under par. Not in one tournament, like all 4 U.S. Opens combined. So even par is still going to be a very good score here, even though you look at these, it's like these fairways are so wide and these greens are so big, like they should be able to shoot 8, 9 under. No, it'll be a little bit like Oakmont last year where par is a good score. But anyway, back to that top 10. Koepka, your winner, Tommy Fleetwood, second, and then DJ, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Tony Finau, Daniel Berger, Tyrrell Hatton, Xander Schauffele, Henrik Stenson, Justin Rose, Webb Simpson. So that was your top 10, right? All of those are pretty proven players. Not all of them major champions, but most of them, in fact, are major champions, and all guys that have been at least proven winners in the highest level of professional golf. But you've got some guys that get it out there off the tee, like a DJ, like a Justin Rose, and now maybe even a Xander Schauffele. And then you had like good iron players like Webb Simpson or Henrik Stenson at that point in his career. Good scramblers around the green, the Patrick Reeds of the world, at the Tommy Fleetwood. So you have a real diverse player. So this is not one where I think you can necessarily legislate guys out of the game, even though this is going to be a par 70 and it's going to be, you know, mid 7,400 yards. I don't think necessarily shorter hitters nor longer hitters or anybody is really legislated out of who it's going to be. So it's really hard to kind of pinpoint in terms of like a stat profile. Like, you know, most weeks it's pretty cut and dry. Not so much here.
Kelley, I think when I look at Shinnecock and just kind of how the course sets up in my mind, how it's going to set up, what it's going to take to get this done, I have not run all the models yet. I have not come to a complete betting card or anything like that, but it would pretty much shock me if it was not a truly pedigreed player who is winning this tournament. Like I don't even think we're seeing anybody win for like the 2nd time on tour or anything like that. Like I think that this is going to be a gritty, tough, not at all a survival thing like we saw in 2018, but certainly is going to reward you for not messing up. It's going to, you got to take your pars and move on. And when birdie chances present themselves, yeah, you really, really need to take advantage of them. Sometimes you land in the thick stuff. You're just going to have to understand that 5 might be the score you're actually going for on these. And I think that's the mentality and the headspace of these guys that have been there and kind of done that. And so I don't know for sure. I'll see how all the final models play out. And if there's a price that's just too good to be true on someone, then maybe I end up there. But I imagine this is going to be pretty close to the top to second tier type card for me.
Yeah, I would. Initially, I am thinking very similarly. I kind of already brought it up. I think one of the biggest decisions I'll be making here before making final selections, whether it is Scheffler or going further down. Although I will say there are some guys at some longer numbers that are appealing to me. However, even when I say longer numbers, Matt, I'm either not talking all that long, or I am talking longer numbers that are some guys with a resume at least. So, yeah, there's some of that. I think that's the big decision that I have to make. I think the other thing that we say very often on this podcast, and I will bring up again, we've got to make bets early because we got to do a lot of content. You don't have to make bets till we start this thing or till we get into this thing. And if you are looking at Shinnecock Hills, one of the things you need to be looking at is weather, and the wind right now in the forecast for Thursday is very, very strong. So I would recommend checking in on that multiple times. I know I will be before I make final bets here. And this is shifted even a little bit from what I looked at yesterday, and even this morning just starts to look like it's coming earlier and earlier and earlier. This did yesterday looked like it was spilling over into Friday some, and then this morning it looked like it was just going to be late Thursday. Now starting to look like it's going to be most of Thursday where this wind really kicks in. So that's such a unique feature of this course. Really no wind. If you've been watching, you see all the video we've been running, really no trees to stop that wind. Just open golf course to the conditions coming in off the ocean. So I think it's always a big factor here. I think it's going to be a big factor. I'm very curious, kind of like Wes is talking about, kind of the stat profile that we put together. I'm interested to see, I think what we know is, okay, approach going to be very important here. Around the green, what you're doing there is going to be important here. I think the greens, we're back to one of these situations where they're going to be relatively tough for everybody. Like Wes said, I think we'll be looking at a lot of approach putt stats, stuff like that, 3-putt avoidance. I think off the tee is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm not sure how I'm going to approach it yet as far as distance versus accuracy. I think both are important this week. I think you're going to hear a million times how these are wide fairways. However, there are certain portions and halves of these fairways that you need to hit into to set yourself up for good angles going into these greens. I think that's very true. And look, once you start getting wide off the tee here, it gets real bad real quick. So we might talk 48 yards wide. You need to make sure you're in that 48 yards though. And I guess I'm interested to see how much distance does matter here, because that is, you brought up that 2018 leaderboard, Wes. Still some bigger hitters that were kind of jumping out to me. And I know if you just go off of some of the stats that we saw over that tournament, doesn't necessarily tell you off the tee mattered all that much compared to some of the other stats on approach around the green. But again, one tournament that you're reading into. So I'm curious with that. And I have a feeling I will be leaning towards some of the bigger hitters, maybe baking that in more than some, because I do think we talk about this often. Matt brings it up all the time. Just any little bit of an advantage that you can give yourself there with just a few yards further off the tee. I think at a course in particularly tough windy conditions like this week, that matters more and more.
Wes, I want to make a statement here, and I'm going to see if you agree with it. And then Kelley, I want your opinion as well. If this does hold, and given the scoring conditions that we do believe that this is going to, it is U.S. Open, and the scoring conditions that we do believe this is going to have, I think you can lose this tournament on Thursday. If the wins are ridiculous like they are, I'm not going to play any of these dudes that might be wonky off the tee because, listen, anyone that's played golf in Vegas or on a windy day or anything, like, you understand it. Wide fairways don't matter if your ball's blowing 30 yards in the air and whatever. Like, you've got to be able to control. It doesn't even matter if it's wide fairways or not. Like, again, a name that comes to mind, Cam Smith, right? It's like, I don't if this profile holds up for Thursday, I don't know if I can click the button on a guy like him, despite the fact he's playing much, much better over the last year than
and
he's
been very widely tipped from what I've seen early. Looking in the space, it's like, man, he's got some believers, certainly.
But I think you can lose this thing on Thursday. Like if he goes out and shoots a 6 over because he can't hit a fairway and he's playing out of this ridiculous rough every single time, like he's not going to go 3 under, 3 under, 3 under on the last 3 days. You know what I mean? That's just like, I don't think the scoring conditions are going to allow for that. So I just wonder if you can lose this thing on Thursday. And I think the guys that are super wayward off the tee, if this profile holds that Kelley just pulled up, and again, as we said, weather changes, check in. But I don't think I can click the button on those guys. And so just a nugget that also kind of came to me here early on.
Well, I think you saw a little bit of that last year with some of these guys, because Oakmont, I realize this is a little bit different profile than Oakmont, but we saw it last year. There were some big name players that shot very big numbers on day one. But, like Bryson, who was one of the favorites last year, he shoots 73 and then shoots 77. He misses the cut. Tommy Fleetwood. You had a lot of really big name players. Patrick Cantlay, Ludwig Gobert, where it's like, man, you feel like if you're 3 or 4 over, it's going to be hard to fight to even make the cut here. So, that's what happens. And it's a grinder like we saw last year when JJ Spawn won in a grinder. And just to say one more thing about you guys, we're talking about like class players are going to win here. That doesn't mean like guys that have just won multiple major championships. Like you look at JJ Spawn last year, he was 150-1. So he was a long shot, no doubt about it. But it wasn't like he was a total nobody from nowhere, because I run in my article, I run like the lead-in form of these guys. And I know world rankings can get kind of funky nowadays with the LIV players not getting points, but JJ Spawn was ranked 25th in the world before he won the U.S. Open, and he had like 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s. Remember last year, I think he had 2 runners-up, including the Players' Championship, where he lost that playoff to Rory on Monday. You're going to get mostly class guys. Like, I'm just looking down this, and it's like, I don't see anybody ranked like 70th in the world necessarily winning the U.S. Open, because I think you have to be a proven player out here. And that's why, you're probably not going to see, when we reveal our cards on Tuesday, a lot of 200-1 shots or something like that. Everybody wants to hit one of those, but there's a reason those don't hit very often in the majors. And if they do, make sure that there's some kind of pedigree to them, like you were saying, Matt. Make sure that these guys are they ranked a certain amount? Do they have a top 10s and top 5s? Coming in here, even if they're not wins. So you got to make sure, instead of like, okay, there's a big name, wow, that's a big price. Probably a reason.
Kelley, a thing that you and I have joked about on tons of programming that we have done together about the names of golfers. And it's like, you basically had to be a golfer, because there's just, there's no other way for you to go in life because of what your parents did to you. So of these young qualifiers, we have a Miles Russell, a Mason Howell, we have a Jackson Ormond, we have
baseball players.
We have a Vaughn Harbor.
Yeah,
we
Vaughn
have
Harbor.
a Ryder. We have a Ryder Cowan, a Chase Kyles, a Merrick Fleming, and a Jackson Von Paris.
I was going to mention that if you didn't mention it, out of the Gastonia qualifier.
Yes. So we have all of those names in the field. Those are all guys that are like sub 23 years old. So like, again, their parents are like, you're going to be a golfer, or you're just going to get your ass kicked. That's all there's to it. Like, you're going to be a golfer, or you're just going to grow up and get your ass kicked on a daily basis.
You don't have a choice, Ryder. Settle in.
Yeah.
Cup name.
Spencer Tibbetts. There's another one. Yes.
It's like, go get it done, Merrick Fleming. Or you're either going to be a golfer, or you're just going to get your ass kicked every single day. Like, it's one of the two. So go be a golfer and like get it done with all this. Guys, we appreciate you being with us here on this early look here. Wanted to give you something to think about as you started to put your research together, as you started to put your models together. We're doing the exact same thing you are, but these are our early thoughts, and hopefully that can lead you down a path of getting to some names that you feel good about as we put into the account. I will say this, there is, as we just talked about, the odds are varying out there. So be sure and take a look at everything. Make sure that you are giving yourself multiple different outs with all of this. I mean, it's a pretty big difference between a 25 and a 35. Pretty big difference between a 38 and a 44. So those are all available out there in the various books. And so this is where it pays off to go in.
And Matt,
and
how should people bet outright tickets?
Oh, if you're getting the longer one, I mean, like, actually, I say for all of them, but I mean, at the very least, if you are getting a little bit of a longer number, just chop them up, just split them up. If you're going to bet $25 on a guy, make $5 bets. If you're going to bet $50 on a guy, make $10 bets. And what you can do is if the guy plays himself into contention on Sunday, you're going to get the cash out option, and then it's up to you. You can let it ride. It's just you have an option to go in and get some of the profit and then let 80% of it ride or let 60% of it ride or whatever you want to do on that Sunday, because it's helped me so far this year. I mean, I have 7 second place finishes. I have 7 seconds so far this year. So, I mean, it's the only way that I've been able to kind of keep, myself from drinking every Sunday evening, when a golf tournament gets done, is at least I know that I left with about the same amount of money that I went in with. And so just another thing that you can put into it takes a little bit of extra time, but you give yourself options.
And one thing too, with placement markets, if you're going that route, low 60 and ties here. They don't have that 10 shot rule anymore then they haven't had it for a few years that the USGA used to have. So harder to even make a cut. So I know you always see those big numbers and want those big scores in the 10s and the 20s. Don't ignore the 30s and the 40s necessarily, because this is going to be a hard cut to make, and this is going to be hard for everyone.
Wait, Wes, 60 or 65?
Yeah.
It is, I believe it is low 60.
Okay.
I will before we go. Before we go here, I will go ahead and verify that. I was just.
I'm sorry. I had 65.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did that. 67 players, by the way, made it last year. The cut of 156. So, that's where we were last year. Let me see, because it didn't end up being, I don't think, a 10 shot deal. So, because what missed the cut? Yeah, like plus 8 missed the cut. And
60.
the leader,
Wes is right. Wes is right.
Yeah,
60.
yeah. Because the leader after the second round was Sam Burns, and he was 3 under par. So 8 under ended up missing the cut, and 8 under may up and end up making the cut this year if we think that this wind is going to blow. So look, I'm ready for the Carnage, man. You know, that's what the U.S. Open is, and that's what they want. So if you didn't like Oakmont last year, you're not going to like Shinnecock Hills.
There's no doubt about that. Guys, if you are not already a subscriber, go ahead and hit that little button down below. If you're watching us on the video side or on YouTube, appreciate you helping us out, subscribing over there. And then if it's the audio side and you stumbled upon us, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. It costs you nothing. It helps us. So, I mean, you're a nice person. You want to help us out. I appreciate it. So thanks for doing that. We'll be back with the full podcast on Tuesday. All of our leans, all of our hates, and every single bet that is in our account as well. And of course, be sure and check in over at VSiN.com for Wes's full preview of everything over there at Shinnecock. Until then, for Wes, for Kelley, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your bets.